Good afternoon and welcome to the fourth and final show here today on FLW TV. My name is George Harbey and I'm joined by Adam Jones. Adam, how you doing, mate?
Not bad, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. The rain's holding off for now, but I'm sure that will change soon. Marcus, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Excited to talk about some of the best talents in the EFL. So yeah, buzzing this afternoon.
Absolutely, yes. It's the debate show today here on FLW TV. Thanks everyone for watching the previous three episodes today we've had. It's been a very busy day. Yes, debate topic today. Which three EFL players could you see leaving for the Premier League in January? The lads have got three selections each, but we want to hear from you. Make sure you leave your comments below on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. And also make sure to subscribe to us on FLW TV on YouTube as well. Right, without further ado, let's get into the first pick of this show. And we're going to start with Marcus for your first pick. Marcus, a striker in red hot form at the moment.
Yeah, Victor Gyökeres is what I've been practicing, ready to kick off the show with. The Swedish striker has had an incredible start to the season at Coventry City. I'm obviously talking in the aftermath of his brace and Coventry's slamming of promotion hopefuls. Fulham 4-1 at the weekend. Obviously, he really stood out for his brace in that match, but what a start to the season he's had, and he's bound to be gaining as admirers as the weeks go on. Strikers are always attractive. You always get speculation about teams needing a new striker coming towards the January transfer window, and I think particularly if Coventry can't sort of sustain this positive start to the season, you might see a more realistic move for Gyökeres moving forward. He does have a contract at the CBS Arena until the summer of 2024. That's very helpful, a great position for the Sky Blues to be in, with him being just 23 years old as well, if there are some interested parties. So yeah, he's got a great physique. I think he might be able to make that step up physically to the Premier League quicker than we've seen other strikers and just other players of other positions making that jump. Obviously, you wouldn't expect the goals to come to him as easily as they have done at the start of the season with the step up. If he can be as clinical as he has been in these opening exchanges of the season, then I'm confident that if he was given the opportunity, this could be a player that could see at Premier League level in the near future.
I think it's 9 goals in 11 games so far. Fantastic start for him. Fantastic start for Coventry as well. Coventry fans are normally very active in the comments on our videos, so make sure you send in your comments whilst we talk about Gyökeres. How much do you reckon he's worth? I'll come with you to Adam. How much you said about his contract there. 3 years left or 2 years left, if you want to say 2024. Marcus, how much do you reckon Gyökeres is worth in this market? If a club was going to come in this January.
Sorry, are you coming to me there?
Okay, sorry, yes.
Yeah. It's a tricky one. I think the length of the contract, as I mentioned, puts him in a great position. Maybe there's a little striker tax. You know that the disposable income Premier League clubs have compared to teams at the Championship. If he continues this form, Coventry could ask for silly money, really. I'd be putting in 20 million as a benchmark, as maybe that's where you start. Obviously, COVID has hit the purse strings of some clubs a little bit. Obviously, the Championship clubs are maybe a little bit more desperate to get the money coming in. But I think 20 million would be a minimum start point. You could maybe even get to push them to 30. But it all depends on what happens in between now and January. If Coventry are still in third position or in and around the playoff places, then they should definitely be able to keep him at least until the end of the season. So I think they'll be looking to hold on to him whatever. But I see this one possibly happening if we do see a regression in Coventry's form and maybe some teams towards the bottom end of the Premier League getting a bit desperate, want to fire themselves away from a relegation battle could show a bit of interest. But in talking about a fee, I'd say 20 million minimum in January for now.
Absolutely. Victor Gyökeres, very good striker. Will he be leaving Coventry in January? We shall soon see. So, Adam, your first pick of the show. We're moving on to South Wales, aren't we, for your first one?
Yes, Kieffer Moore, another striker. 18 months left on his contract, but has had a very different season to Gyökeres, really. Has really struggled to get off the mark. I think he's only scored 1 goal this season. But he has 18 months left on his contract, I think. And, that's probably the ideal time, really, for Cardiff City to cash in if they do want to make quite a bit of money for him. Because, when it gets down to, a year or so, from 18 months, its valuation is only going to go down, really. And it has been a really disappointing season for him so far, I have to admit. I was watching him in action on Saturday afternoon and just wasn't anywhere near the levels that he was last season. Last season, 20 goals in the Championship, did well to adjust to Cardiff in his first season. And was actually a real asset as well during the European Championships for Wales. He may have only scored one goal against Switzerland for the equaliser in the first group game, but just the physical presence that he brings and just an all-round game really to bring others into play, and his goals and just everything really about him. Now I know that Wolves submitted a £7 million bid for him in the summer on deadline day. I know Mick McCarthy was quite surprised at the lack of interest in him earlier on in August, but Wolves finally moved £7 million. Cardiff wanted £12 million, but I think they'll demand perhaps a little bit less for him, maybe 10 million, and I'm pretty sure that they can then negotiate a fee between the duo. But I think Burnley may also be a decent shout for him, just the style of play. He could fit into that Chris Wood mould, and as a Welsh international, it'll be very good. But at 29, if he's not going to go to the Premier League now, then when is he?
Exactly. We've had a comment just on the previous point from Glenn. If Cov are going to sell anyone, I think it'd be likely to be Hamer or possibly O'Hare. But again, it'd be silly money needed to sell. Just sticking with you there, Adam. You say Wolves and Burnley. You think someone like Burnley would be interested. Is that solely because of his aerial threat, or does he bring any other threats to his game? Do you reckon?
I think aerial threat, is the main one. He's just his all-round game as well. His potency in front of goal when he's in the mood as well. He can be, but I think aerial threat in itself is a real vital asset, not just in the attacking box, but also the defensive box as well. I know, just picking an example from my own club, Jan Kermorgant during the 2016-17 season was absolutely vital for us, kind of defensively, defending set pieces, and I think that's a really important thing to have. And also, it's not just his physical kind of abilities either. It's the fact that he's got international pedigree. He's performed on the biggest stage as well against some really capable teams, some really capable defenders. And he's just a threat. He gets himself in the right place at the right time. Again, mentioning the goal at the European Championships, imposing in the air, and gets himself in the right place at the right time. And I think, will he get himself good again under McCarthy? I'm not sure. I think at some point he'll pick it up because I think he's a quality striker. But yeah, as I said, at 29, if he's not going to go to the Premier League now, then I don't think he is. And that's the reason why I think he might leave in January.
Absolutely. Cardiff fans, get your comments in. Are you confident keeping Kieffer Moore beyond January, or will he be sold? Right, sticking with the Reading theme, let's move on to Marcus's second pick. Yes, Marcus, your second pick. We're in Berkshire at the Select Carlesian Stadium now, I should say. Move with the modern times. Who's your pick this time?
It is John Swift. It pains me to say it. He's been with the Royals for a fair amount of time now. Has been a key player for definitely the last few seasons in the Championship. Now, the main reason why I sort of suggest John Swift for this show is Reading's financial difficulties. I think there might be a point where they're going to have to bring in some income in January, and also he's a player. A bit like a player that I'm going to come on to as my third pick, who's out of contract in the summer. Now, I think that does make a big difference because there's value to be had. Clubs have been forced to be a lot smarter in the market in the last year or so because of the impacts of COVID and having no fans at football. John Swift, the contract ending in the summer, you'd still have to pay a fee, but it would be significantly less than a player like Gyökeres, who had a contract ending in 2024. John Swift's 26 now. He'd be ready, personally, in my opinion, to walk straight into a Premier League side. He's not a player that you'd need to bed in much. I don't think he's a player that needs to sort of get used to the feel of a big club. He's been at Chelsea before. He's been... Reading is a big club in the Championship as well, so I don't think there'd be too much of an adaptation period. He's got 7 goals and 5 assists already in the Championship this season, which for a goal-scoring midfielder is incredible numbers. He's also capable of playing as either a number 8 or a number 10, could play in a midfield 3 and midfield 2, or just off of the striker. Gives the tactical flexibility that I'm sure managers would like in this day and age. He's got great dead ball ability. What is there not to like about John Swift? I'm sure he's got plenty of Premier League admirers.
Reading fans, get your comments in. Can you keep Swift beyond January? I'm going to come to you for this question, Adam, naturally, because you're a Reading fan. I know off air you were going to pick Swift for your pick, but can you explain why you may not feel, are you confident about keeping him beyond January, and why do you feel that?
I think it's just with our previous track record in previous seasons now. Marcus mentioned quite rightly the finances, and I think that's the one thing that may tempt us to sell, because we have to submit a business plan to the EFL, I think, as part of our punishment and possible points deduction. And selling Swift, might please the EFL a bit more than if we didn't. But our owner has always been, Mr. Dye has always been quite reluctant to sell some of his prized assets. And the only reason why we sold Michael Elise this summer is because he had a release clause. I think if he hadn't have had a release clause, I think we wouldn't have sold. And there's been, previous examples where we haven't sold Danny Loader to Wolverhampton Wanderers when we should have done. We didn't sell Liam Moore to Brighton and Hove Albion, I think in 2018, when we should have done. And I think, his reluctance to sell players, and also our reliance on him at the moment as well, and depending on the situation we're in, because if we're just above the relegation zone, I think we'll be prepared to take the hit, if I'm honest with you. But also just kind of one more point, I think it will be like a Johnston situation in the summer with West Brom, where West Ham submitted a £6 million bid and that was nowhere near the valuation. I think we'll get bids, but I don't think it will be anywhere near the valuation. I think in the end we'll weigh it up and say we may as well keep Swift and let him go for free at the end of the season, however painful it is.
Very interesting. So Gyökeres, Moore and Swift, we're at half time in terms of our picks. Keep your comments coming in regarding who you think will leave the EFL in January for the Premier League. Just without putting you on the spot too much, Marcus, B Talks SS said, I could see Kieffer Moore heading to Leeds with their lack of depth at striker and their recurring injuries. Could you see, Marcus, Kieffer Moore being a good player under Bielsa, or is that not really a perfect fit?
Well, it's an interesting clash of styles, isn't it? Going from Mick McCarthy football to Marcelo Bielsa. So I think that would have to be a work in progress. Whether he's got that adaptability at 29, I'm not so sure. Patrick Bamford needs a bit of competition for places at Leeds. It feels like he's a shoe-in on the starting 11 whenever they have a match, no matter what kind of vein of form he's in. I think Kieffer Moore would take that. It's between the two clubs really more than it is the player. If Leeds were interested and they met Cardiff's valuation, I'm sure Kieffer Moore would jump at the chance to play under Bielsa. Can I see it personally? Probably not.
Let's move on to our fourth pick of the show and Adam's second pick. And I suppose sticking kind of on the Leeds United route, a player they like to look of a lot in the summer and had a big rejection for, Lewis O'Brien. Adam, you've chosen him for your pick, and can you tell us why?
I just think Leeds United will get him in January. I have to be honest with you. I think there's a release clause in his contract that was reported a couple of days ago. I think 10 million is the price tag, and I think Leeds United, considering he's 22, there's still lots of room for improvement. So I think he'll definitely go to Leeds at some point, whether it will be in January or next summer. I'm not so sure, but they were really pushing for him, it seems, in the summer. According to Football Insider, there was plenty of articles on him. And yeah, I mean, I know he signed a new contract, but obviously, the clause, kind of changes the game for them. And if anything, kind of makes an exit more likely, really. I know Bielsa kind of watched him in action. So that's another thing, personally went to see him. So he must like him quite a lot. I think they could do with a bit more depth just in central midfield, Leeds United. And also, I mean, Huddersfield Town have had a fantastic start to the season, let's be honest. And that could really help him kind of thrive in the Championship and really become, if not already, then one of the best players, kind of, one of the best midfielders in the Championship. So I think that's important. Huddersfield Town, I think, will be willing to cash in. They did with Juninho Bacuna in the summer, who went to Rangers. So I think that's a possibility, and they could reinvest that money as well. If they did sell him in January for a potential playoff push, and they could reinvest in multiple positions. So yeah, I think it's a definite possibility, to be honest with you.
Keep your comments coming in, guys. Harry's coming in to say, great show, chaps. I could see someone coming in for Callum Stiles at Barnsley. I really rate him, but think he won't be want to be at a struggling Championship side. I mean, Marcus, what do you make of Harry's comment there? I mean, Callum Styles did very well under Valérien Ismaël last season. Do you agree with what Harry's had to say here?
Yeah, I think so. He's shown a lot of versatility this season, obviously coming back inside from left wing back berth last term into more of a central midfield role this term. Obviously, Barnsley's league position, I think, could make the interest a bit more relevant, because he's a player who will not want to be playing in League One if depending on where Barnsley are in terms of their league position going into January. I think, a player like Callum Styles will not want to be involved in a relegation battle, where he was heavily involved in Barnsley's tremendous last game survival in 2019-20, but his performances over the last year or so show that he's a better player than that now, and should be having lofty ambitions to play at the top of the Championship or in the Premier League. So yeah, I do agree with Harry. I can see that coming in around January.
Thank you very much for your comments, guys. Keep them coming in. Adam, just finally rounding off on O'Brien then. I mean, I must admit, when I saw about the release clause being £10 million, considering they've only just got him to sign a new 4-year deal as well, I thought my initial reaction was that's a bit cheap, a bit of a bargain. What do you think? What do you make of that £10 million release clause talk?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's an absolute bargain, considering he's only 22. There's lots of room for improvement under Bielsa, who's a world-class coach. I think he'll become a fantastic asset. But I doubt that he would have signed a new contract. I know that he's always been in Yorkshire, but I think, with Huddersfield kind of graduated through the academy, but I don't think he would have signed a new contract. Obviously, they had the ability to extend his contract by an extra year, but then what happens after that? So, I think they're guaranteeing themselves an 8-figure fee, which I think, it's not absolutely perfect, and I totally agree with you, but it's better than nothing. And Leeds United have, the advantage of being in Yorkshire as well, because he's been to Bradford on loan. He's obviously, spent a lot of time in Huddersfield, spent his whole footballing career in Yorkshire. So I think Leeds United feels like the next step, and I think that interest in the end will prove to be too much.
We'll see what happens there. We're on to the home straight. Let's move into our final picks of the show. Thank you very much for your comments. It seems, Marcus, we've got a mind reader amongst the comments. Tom T. Jed Wallace is a dead cert to leave, in my opinion. You agree, don't you?
I do, yeah. My third pick of the show is Millwall's Jed Wallace. I feel like this one could be a little bit more to do with league position, as I've mentioned with some of the other players in the show. I think if Millwall do fall away and they aren't really involved in any distant playoff push, and are also quite far away from being dragged into a relegation battle, which I think is probably quite realistic the way they've started the season: 3 wins, 6 draws, 2 losses. Carrying on that form would probably have them in and around a secure lower mid-table. And Jed Wallace, with his contract up in the summer, I think if they're in a secure position, they might think, shall we take the transfer fee now? Because it feels like if Millwall don't get promoted, which of course is a long shot, Jed Wallace leaves at the end of his contract in the summer to go to a Premier League side. There was reported interest from West Ham towards the back end of the window. I think that could be a decent fit. They need some more players playing in the Europa League this season. And I think Jed Wallace, as I mentioned with John Swift, is 27, 1 year older than Swift. Should be able to handle the adaptation and the expectation a little bit more. He's had loads of expectation on his shoulders in carrying Millwall's attacking contingent, so why can't he carry that burden in the Premier League? I've just run through, jotted down a few of his stats from recent seasons. 19-20, 10 goals, 12 assists. 20-21, 10 goals, 7 assists. This is a Millwall side that have very poor attacking threat outside Jed Wallace now, really. So can you imagine what he'd be like in a free-flowing attacking side? He deserves that opportunity. He said in a recent interview that, he wants to make the Premier League with Millwall, but that is his ambition, to play in the Premier League. His contract ends in the summer. You don't let your best player's contract run down this thin unless he does have desires to leave the club. So, Jed Wallace in January, if Millwall are in a secure position and they think it's worth us taking the money, because we're not in any danger of getting relegated.
Millwall fans, what do you reckon with Marcus's comments there and Tom T's comments? Is Jed Wallace a cert to leave, or will you somehow manage to cling on to him to the end of the season? We're going to go through all the comments after we've heard of Adam's last pick. Yep, so we've had Gyökeres, Moore, Swift, O'Brien, Wallace, and Adam, you're completing the 6. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Matt Grimes, to be honest with you. Less than 12 months left on his deal. But this is mainly, I think, not even down to Matt Grimes. I think this is partly down to Jay Fulton. I did a verdict not so long ago, and I was interacting with some Swansea City fans, and they were saying, I'm not so sure that there's room for both Matt Grimes and Flynn Downs in the midfield. We kind of need someone who can break up the play like Jay Fulton. So that might, tempt Swansea to cash in. Now, let's be honest with you. I mean, Swansea City haven't been exactly shy in cashing in on some of their most valuable assets in recent years. Even Jamal Lowe that they sold to Bournemouth, to a championship rival. They sold Connor Roberts to Burnley. Burnley's obviously gone in recent years. Rodon's gone in recent years. Dan James has gone in recent years. And those are just a few of the players that they've kind of let go. So I have no doubt whatsoever that they'd be willing to cash in if the price is right for Grimes. I know that they rejected offers in the summer, but I think, as long as they have the room to kind of reinvest that money, I think Russell Martin might actually be okay, kind of in terms of, sanctioning that deal. But what I would say is they do need a leader in there, to be honest with you, because Russell Martin is still quite a young manager, still in his 30s, and having as many leaders in there as possible, in the Swansea City dressing room is important. So I think that they would need to not just get in another midfielder maybe, but also a real leader kind of in the dressing room. I think that's really important. But yeah, they could reinvest in other areas, and if they're not going to cash in now, then I don't think they ever will. I think they'll probably lose him for free on that one.
Swansea fans, get your comments in. Will you be able to keep hold of Matt Grimes? We're going to come on to Fulham with you, Marcus. I mean, you do a lot of, the London side of FOW. Fulham were the ones strongly linked with Grimes during the summer. Do you reckon they still need him, or do you reckon now they've got people like Nathaniel Chalobah? Do you reckon their interest has died down? He's almost missed out on a move to Fulham.
I'm not sure if they need him necessarily, but the way it's going at the moment, they will want to freshen up the squad. I think in January, I think the Fulham owners are probably seeing this season as get out of the Championship or bust. And signing a player of Matt Grimes' class, one of the most cultured midfielders in the Championship, could definitely aid that. I don't think they have a midfielder like him. Tom Kearney is maybe a bit in the Grimes mould, but is probably past his peak in the division at the moment. Obviously, Zambo Anguissa went on loan to Napoli. So, yeah, I do see Matt Grimes slotting in well at Fulham. I'd like to see Swansea keep him. I maybe disagree with some of the fans that Adam's been interacting with. I think that Flynn Downs, Matt Grimes partnership has got good potential, particularly if they're going to continue to have as much possession of the football as they have been since Russell Martin's come in. So it's an interesting one. Obviously, Fulham will have the financial muscle to make a deal possible if they really desire. So it's going to be an interesting one to monitor.
Absolutely. So there's our 6 picks: Victor Gyökeres, Kieffer Moore, John Swift, Lewis O'Brien, Jed Wallace, and Matt Grimes. We think they will leave the EFL for the Premier League in January. We're going to go through some final comments. Make sure you get yours in just to round off the final 5 minutes of the show. Michael's got in touch and said Matt Grimes is a Premier League player for me, such a classy player. So he agrees as well. Just looking through some final comments. As I said, make sure you keep getting yours in. Ben Berriton Diaz to leave. Adam, what do you reckon of that? He's still not signed a new deal at Blackburn, the Chilean sensation. Do you reckon he'll be on his way out in January if he keeps scoring goals?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, consistency will be key. I think Harvey Elliott leaving and Adam Armstrong also leaving for Southampton's kind of allowed him to take centre stage. He said, not so long ago that Chile had kind of given him so much confidence, and boy, we can tell that. The goal scoring form is amazing at the moment. Obviously, that hat-trick against Cardiff, but not just against Cardiff either, in other games. So I think that's a great shout. I think he's definitely one that could leave. I'm not 100% sure which Premier League side he would go to, but he's young enough to, really improve, like O'Brien in a way. I can kind of compare him to O'Brien in the fact that there's still even more room for improvement, and I think it will only get better with more Premier League experience. So yeah, 100% I agree with that.
Tom T's got in touch again. Marcus, as I said, London influencer. Imagine clubs be sniffing around Elias' chair too. What do you reckon of that?
Yeah, definitely. He's a great player. I think QPR should be able to stay in and around the playoff picture all the way to January and hopefully beyond that. So I'm not 100%. I think Mark Warburton will be very keen for them to keep hold of him. Obviously, they've lost the likes of Eze and Asay Samuel in recent years. They won't want that to happen again with Ilias Chair. You know, they've bounced back each time, but Chair is pivotal to everything they want to achieve this season. I think QPR have probably got the financial security at the moment to keep Ilias Chair at the club despite some lucrative offers in January, at least until the end of the season. But interest there will be for sure.
Keep your comments coming in, guys, for the last couple of minutes of the show. Michael's come in and said Forest, Brennan Johnson to leave. Lots of Premier League clubs are keen. You know, obviously a top talent. Did well at Lincoln last season, and he started to really hit the ground running for Forest as well. You know, a very good player. Steve Cooper seems to be getting the best out of him. Brentford were the ones who were most keen on him in the summer, Adam.
Yeah.
You know, if Forest keep on climbing and rising under Steve Cooper, you'd imagine that he'll get plenty more interest in January.
I do. I think he will get a lot of interest. I think he's a great talent, kind of really did well at Lincoln City as well, alongside Morgan Rogers, especially in that second half of last season. I think he would benefit from having a full season in the Championship, just to kind of get used to the second tier before making the jump up. I mean, at least one season, I think. I think he'll thrive again under Steve Cooper. I think under most managers he would thrive anyway. And you know, he's spent a lot of time at Forest as well. So I think he himself will benefit from at least one or two more seasons before making the step up. There's still plenty of time for him in his career. So yeah, I think patience will be key on this one. And again, you know, like Chair, like Brereton Diaz, just that consistency is needed. You know, that's often the difference between Championship players and players that actually go on to make it to the Premier League.
Absolutely. So that rounds off a busy debate episode and a busy day here on FLW TV. Thank you all for watching. Tomorrow we're back as well with two more debate shows. Actually, in the morning we've got a League One Fan Awards at 11 a.m. and then at 2 p.m. we're going to discuss our prediction table from the Championship, what we predicted in pre-season. See how we are faring. I'll be back with Marcus and Sam Rook for that, and also at 20 to 5. We're looking at top 5 most underrated players in the Championship with Billy, Toby and Chris Gallagher. Thank you again for all your comments and interaction. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, and make sure you also do the same tomorrow and watch all our shows tomorrow afternoon. But until then, take care.